Hello, I'm Brian. I happen to be a tool and gadgets guy, and using and finding the right tool is half the fun of gardening or any task that I do. The right tool can be the difference between a chore or a fun activity. And starting out as a gardener, there are quite a few tools out there that you can buy, and the whole process can be kind of overwhelming. So if I were to start this process all over again, here are the 3 tools that I would consider getting. Okay, let's go and check out what's in the tool shed. I've got quite a few tools in here that I've amassed over the years. Some of these tools are pretty practical, and some are just more fun to use. On the right here, I have the tools that I normally reach for and use, and on the left here are some of the tools that I don't use on occasion, including this pick Mattox that I got, and it's one of the earlier tools that I got and I no longer really use. Instead, I use a different tool now. There are some other rakes back down that way too, and they don't get used too often because we're in California and we don't have seasons, and our plants and trees don't drop leaves. So let's see, we'll just grab the 3 tools that I'm going to recommend that I would get if I was to go back in time and tell my earlier self, and I'll talk to you and tell you why that is. The first tool I recommend is actually not this trowel. This trowel is a very iconic gardening tool. It's one I picked up and I found that I no longer really use. It's more of a scooper tool. So the one that I actually use more often is this tiller Mattox here. I'll talk to you about this tiller Mattox in detail in a little bit, but I want to come back to you talk about this trowel. This is one that's commonly picked up by gardeners, and I found that it's more of a soil scooper. So if you have really loose soil and you're just scooping soil around, this is a very handy tool to have. But if you're scooping soil, you have these things you can use to scoop your soil with your hands. But if you do want to get a garden trowel, here are some pointers. The most important part and the weakest part of a garden trowel would be this, I don't know what it's called, this metal part here. I would call it part of the handle. And if you're working in really hard clay soil, if this is a really soft metal, it will bend and it'll break. So this one has been a pretty good sturdy trowel. I got this from a big box retailer very, very long ago. I think 6 or 7 or 8 years ago. So they don't make this one anymore. And I liked it because it has a wooden handle. And if you notice, most of my tools, I like wooden handles on them. They're good because they have a good surface for you to grip on. So they're a little bit frictiony. There's more friction as opposed to composite handles. It can be kind of slippery. But yeah, as far as digging into this hard clay, it's going to take a lot of work, a lot of leverage. But if you have soft soil, it just breaks up easily. So I don't use this very often. Okay, so this is the tiller Mattox. This one I purchased from the garden center 6 to 8 years ago as well, and I've noticed that they no longer have this tool in stock. They have a different one. It's a very heavy tool. It's also a tiller Mattox, but I found that it's really, really heavy, and I don't think the weight is going to be helpful. What I like about this is that this thing is actually pretty thin, so it can cut through the soil. I've seen the ones that they carry now. It's this really heavy metal that's thick, and it's probably not going to cut through the soil really well, because if you look at the blade here, there's a wedge, so it gets into the soil. The other one, you're just going to be pounding into the soil. You're going to be using more force than you need, so that's a brute force method. So this is a really good tool for people who are starting out gardening, especially if you're gardening in heavy clay soil, and this will cut through heavy soil really easily. You can just give it a good whack, get under there, and lift up. And then the tiller part is good for once you've got your soil loosened, you can use it to mix in your amendment and such. So you can mix that in. It's also a good weeding tool. So let me find a weed and show you how that works. So here's a weed. So what you don't want to do with it generally is you don't want to pull it, because what happens is weeds have really deep roots, and by design they're gonna break off. And if you really want the weed to be gone, you have to get its root and all. So what a tiller Mattox can do is loosen the soil for you, and this is what I've seen a lot of the professional landscapers use. So that's where I got the idea to use this tool, is from the professional. So they're a good gauge as far as how tools work. So what I do is you just chop underneath, lift the soil to loosen it, and at that point you can pull the weed, root and all, out. So this is why I like this tool a lot. It's a really versatile tool, and you can use it to plant things like really quickly, like here. I'm just gonna move some soil out of the way and put these beans into the dirt so that they can germinate, and just cover it back up like this. So this is the tiller Mattox, really handy tool that I use a lot, and it's lasted quite well through the years. The grip here has surprisingly stayed in place. The only thing that I had to do was to find a new screw, because the screw here fell out during use one time, so I had to find a new screw and fix that. So that's a tiller Mattox. Let's look at the next tool. Okay, let's put back our trowel that we hardly ever use. It's there as decor now. Let's put back our tiller Mattox, and we'll grab our next tool, this spade shovel, and we'll check it out. Okay, this is a spade shovel with a D handle, and this is important. The D handle is going to be really important. Half the work is in this handle. As far as the grade of this tool, this is just a standard grade tool. Tools come in different grades, I believe, pretty much standard and then professional. And I found that just a standard grade tool will work. We'll see another tool in a future episode where I recommend that you purchase the best quality that you can afford when it comes to its grade. So this handle, I'll tell you about it in detail a little bit later, but this is once again a spade shovel. This is pretty much your all-around use shovel. It does many things, and as you get further along in gardening, you'll probably want to get different tools that will help you out in other tasks, but this is a general all-around tool. It digs, it scoops soil, you can harvest potatoes with, and other things. So this shovel with its D handle, you'll see as I give you a demo of how it works, it helps you after you scoop the soil, it helps you lift and guide your shovel around in your soil. So this is really helpful, because if you had a regular handle, you just have a little bit more work. This is almost like a joint where you just guide it around and you have all these different types of movements with the shovel. So this handle is really important and key feature of this shovel. This once again is a very versatile tool, which means it's not going to do too many things well. It's good for scooping in a pinch, and you can use it to dig. But as you get further along in gardening and you find that you like gardening and you want to get more tools to help you with your tasks, then you can get a different tool for digging, like a drain spade, which I will talk about and show you in a future episode. But as you can see, you can kind of slowly leverage your way and dig your soil out. Once you have everything, you can pretty much use leverage to loosen your soil, and in a pinch this will get your job done. So here in this pile of pretty loose dirt, we'll see what this shovel is really used for, which is to dig in soft soil and to move a lot of soil out. You can move it, and you can see how I'm holding the shovel with the dirt being in front. The shovel's going to want to go down. I'm actually pressing this back here, trying to get this in camera, this back here with my hand. I'm pushing against it and I'm moving it around, and I can just, you know, hill or mount things easily. I can just mount things if I wanted to, but I'm not actually going to want to mount this tree here. And you can move dirt out of the way with it. So a good tool to have. And if you have a compost bin, you can also use this tool to aerate your compost. But there's another tool that's probably more effective called a spading fork, which you can get later on down the road. But you can use this in a pinch also to aerate your compost. Those are the things I can think of at the moment. I'm sure there are more uses. Okay, let's put back this spade shovel, and we will be talking about the third tool that I would recommend that beginning gardeners get, and it's this pair of bypass pruners. And I would recommend that you get the nicest pair that you can find and afford. This is the nicest pair that I can find and afford 8 years ago. This is a Fiskars bypass pruner. It's got a titanium handle, and it's worked for me well since. I wish that I can get a different pair, namely the Felco brand. Those are a lot nicer. I haven't actually used it myself, but just looking at their design, they look like they're really well made. This one, on the other hand, is pretty good. I've got no real complaints, just the curiosity of how well the Felco might work. This is also the widest opening bypass pruner that I can find. I wanted the one that's as wide as possible because with yard work I have branches that range from different sizes, and I want to cut the ones as thick as possible, because just running around and getting a different cutter for bigger ones is kind of time consuming. So I wanted to have this nearby and just make the cuts. This is useful for when you're clearing out space for a new gardening bed, or you run across some roots when you're digging. Just grab it and make the cut. This one has a blade that I couldn't find replacements for very easily, which I guess turns out to be a good thing, because then it forces me to sharpen it rather than to be a little bit wasteful and buy a replacement blade. But a very sharp blade is very key to how you use this tool, and it's also key because it makes your job a lot more fun and less of a fight. So those are the tools for beginning gardeners that I would recommend to them. And in the next one, I will talk about the digging tools and which ones I recommend for digging and heavy digging. So until the next one, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.